All right, so we're going to go over what is called percent proportions. So we're going to be using the proportions with finding percents or pieces of a whole. So we're going to set this up just like we did the other ones, but we have different names for what we're going to call these pieces. So we are going to start out with the first part being part over whole. So part is the is in the problem. So whenever you see the word is, that is telling you that that is the part, and it's going to go on the top on the first fraction. The whole is the of the problem. So if you see the word of, it's going to be the bottom. So another way to remember this is over of. So if you see the word of, that means that that is your total or your whole. On the other side of the equal sign, we have our percent. So if it has the percent sign that looks like that, we're going to put that number up top on the second fraction. And percent is always, always, always over 100. We're going to go ahead and look at these three examples and go through each step for each one of them. And I will show you how we use proportions to solve percent questions. I'm going to zoom it out a little bit so we can see everything, because I want us to see everything all at once. So we're going to start with this first one here under step 1. So it says determine whether you're being asked the part, the whole, or the percent. So here's what I do. I always look for the word that says what and the word that is near it. So what is? If we remember up top, it says that the is the part of the question. So we are going to be looking for the part in this example. So I know that I'm looking for the part, and that's what I'm going to call X when I set it up in step 2, but we also need to find the other pieces. We need to find the whole and the percent since we're looking for the part. So the percent always has that percent sign, and then the whole always has the word of. So we're going to be out of 80. So we're going to move down to step 2, and we're going to go ahead and create our proportion. So it says what is, that's the part, and it's part over whole equals percent over 100. So my part is where I'm going to put my X. The whole is the word of, so that is going to be my 80. That's my whole, so that goes at the bottom of the first fraction. Is equal to percent over 100. So my percent was 20, and the bottom of the second one for a percent proportion is always 100. Now that we have set up our proportion from our question, we're going to go ahead and start solving it. We're going to cross multiply the numbers that are given and then divide by the remaining number or the number that is touching our variable. So I'm going to rewrite it over here real fast. So X over 80 equals 20 over 100. I'm going to go ahead and cross multiply over here and then over here. So I always like to do the one that I circled in purple first. It's just a habit for me to do so. So I'm going to do 100x is equal to, and then what's in blue goes on the other side of the equal sign, 80 times 20. So we've crossed. Now we're going to do the multiplying step. That is a 20. It just looks ugly, my bad. So 80 times 20, I know that my 100x isn't going to go anywhere, so I'm just going to rewrite it. 8 times 2 is 16, and the 2 zeros would add on to the end. So 80 times 20 is 1,600. Our last step is to divide the answer by the number left over or the number that is next to our variable. So we're going to divide by 100. The number cancels out. Now here's one thing to remember. When you have zeros on the top and the bottom, those can cancel until you get a number that's easy to work with. This only works with zeros and if you have them on the top and the bottom. It is really common to have with percent proportions because of that 100 if we're looking for the part. So once I've canceled out those zeros, I'm technically doing 16 divided by 1, which would tell me that x equals 16. So my part for this percent proportion is 16. Now that we've solved for the part, we're going to go ahead and try this second one that we have. Oops. Oh my goodness. And we're going to go ahead and look all the way through the steps again. We're going to figure out what it wants us to do in step 1, rewrite it as a proportion in step 2, and then find out the answer in step 3. So again, we're looking for those keywords. So we have 16 is represents the part. We have our percent, 20%, of what number. So here's where I figure out what it's asking me. The word that it goes with, the word that what is with, is the word of. That means that we are looking for the whole. Since we are looking for the whole, we are going to go ahead and set this proportion up using that information. So the part goes on top, so part over whole equals percent over 100. So my part is 16. My whole is what we don't know, so we're going to make it an X. And then our percent over 100, it's 20% again, and 100 is always, always, always on the bottom. Now that I've set up my proportion, I'm going to rewrite it down here so I can go ahead and start the solving process by cross multiplying and then dividing. So I'm going to rewrite it. Our part was 16 over X equals 20 over 100. We're going to go ahead and cross multiply. So I tend to do that one first, top to bottom, just a habit. And then we're going to go ahead and do this one. So 16 times 100 equals 20x. I need to go ahead and multiply this 16 times 100, and that gives me 1,600 equals 20x. Now that I've multiplied, I need to divide. So I'm going to divide by the number that is by my x, which is 20. Again, remember that if there are zeros on the top and the bottom, I can cancel those out like this. So now I'm really doing 160 divided by 2. When I do this, I will find that x equals 80. So my whole for this proportion is 80. We have one question or example left, and we're going to go ahead and go through all of those steps again. So we're going to go up here and find our keywords. So we have the word is. I see that one, and it is with 16. So 16 is, that means that that is my part. What percent? So the word what tells me that that's what I'm looking for, and it's saying percent of 80. So of means that is our whole. So that means that we are finding the percent. Usually when you're finding the percent, it's a lot easier because it's more obvious in the statement. So we're going to find the percent. Let's go ahead and go down here and set this up in step 2 in our proportion. So our part and our whole, so we have that whole first fraction. We have 16, which is our part, and our whole, which is 80, equals percent, which is what we don't know. So we're going to name that x over 100 always. I'm going to go ahead and rewrite this in step 3. So I have it right there to work with. So I have 16 over 80 equals x over 100. My is over of equals percent over 100. So I'm going to cross multiply. I always start with this one and then go to the other one. And we are going to solve this out here. So we have, in our first cross, we have 16 times 100 equals, and then in our second cross, we have 80x. So I know from my previous ones, and just from doing the math of it, it is 1,600 or 1,600 when we multiply 100 times 16. And I still have 80x left. Our last step after cross multiplying is to divide by the number that is left with our variable, or the 80. The original 80s cancel, and again, I have a 0 on top and 0 on bottom, so those can cross out too, so it makes it a smaller number to work with. Now we're dealing with 160 divided by 8. I'm going to set this one up over here. 160 divided by 8. 8 cannot go into 1, but it can go into 16 2 times. 2 times 8 is 16. When I subtract, I get 0. I still have another 0 here, so I'm just going to send that up right here. So this means that the percent for this proportion would be 20%. We're still using the same methods of solving. What you need to remember is those numbers and identifying the words with them. So in a proportion that has percents, is on top, and the number that has to go with of is on the bottom. So the part over whole.